Welcome to our presentation on the Excellence in Highway Safety Data Award Student Research Paper Competition. I am Kristen Kersavage with VHB. I would first like to acknowledge the contributions of R.J. Porter from VHB, Raghavan Srinivasan from the University of North Carolina Highway Safety Research Center, and Anna Maria Egan, Research Highway Safety Specialist, and Carol Tan, Team Lead of the Safety Data and Analysis Team at the United States Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration. Please see the disclaimer on the screen. Before introducing the competition, I'm going to give a brief introduction into crash statistics and data-driven safety analysis, or DDSA. These two topics will provide insight into motivations behind safety research and how safety analyses can be applied to real-world problems. I will then discuss the data that's used in the competition, which is Highway Safety Information System, or HSIS data. This is followed by a discussion on the competition and how you all can get involved in safety research through participating in the competition. Before I discuss crash statistics as one motivation for performing safety research, I'd like for you to think about a couple of questions. First, what is road safety research to you? Next, how does safety research improve our quality of life? Crashes in the United States are a big motivation for performing safety research. In 2018, there were approximately 36,500 people killed in motor vehicle crashes, and approximately 20% of those people were not traveling in a vehicle, for example, pedestrians and bicyclists. In 2018, there were also approximately 1.8 million motor vehicle crashes resulting in only injuries. Based on 2010 data and dollars, motor vehicle crashes resulted in a total societal harm of $836 billion. These statistics show the need to perform safety research to reduce crashes. In 2015, motor vehicle crashes were a top 10 leading cause of death for many age groups in the United States. Motor vehicle crashes were the first leading cause of death for children 8 to 15 years old, youth 16 to 20 years old, and young adults 21 to 24 years old. It was also a third, fifth, and ninth leading cause of death for other age groups. The Road to Zero is an initiative from the United States Department of Transportation to eliminate traffic fatalities in the United States by 2050. Road to Zero works with national, state, and local agencies and organizations, some of which include the National Safety Council, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Federal Highway Administration, and Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. What can we do to help reduce and eliminate traffic fatalities? We can use data to learn when, where, and why crashes and resulting fatalities and injuries are occurring, identify countermeasures, implement countermeasures, evaluate safety performance of treatments and roadways, and to learn how policies and decisions will affect safety performance. Data-driven safety analysis, or DDSA, is a method of analysis that uses tools to analyze crash and roadway data to predict the safety impacts of highway projects, allows agencies to target investments with more confidence and reduce severe crashes on the roadways. There are two approaches to DDSA: predictive analysis and systemic analysis. Predictive analysis identifies sites with the greatest potential for improvement, whereas systemic analysis identifies high-risk roadway features that correlate with particular crash types. I'm now going to go through an example of using DDSA for a roadway project. The freeway shown on the slide was constructed west of the city center in the 1960s, along with full diamond interchanges at 1st Street and 4th Street, and a half diamond interchange at 3rd Street. Later, in 1977, an additional full diamond interchange was constructed at 2nd Street. 3rd Street has been an important street and route serving as the traditional entrance to the downtown city center. The city center is undergoing significant redevelopment efforts. It is typically desirable for interchanges with strategic roads to provide for all turning movements. However, as I mentioned, only a half diamond interchange was built, which does not allow all movements on and off the highway. Drivers have to go to the upstream or downstream interchange to make certain movements. Now, what would happen if we completed the interchange and turned the half diamond interchange into a full diamond interchange, as shown on the screen? What are the potential safety issues we need to think about? One safety issue we need to consider is that ramp spacing gets tighter, which could result in more weaving movements. Before I proceed any further, I want to define a couple of key terms I've used while discussing these examples. The first is interchange spacing, illustrated in the top drawing. This is usually defined from the center line of a cross street with an interchange to the center line of an adjacent cross street with an interchange. Here, in the top image, an interchange spacing is shown between a park low A and a diamond interchange, but by its definition, the interchange spacing would remain the same regardless of the interchange type. The dimension in the bottom image represents ramp spacing. I will define it during this presentation as the length between the painted tips of two adjacent ramps. I have it shown here as an entrance ramp followed by an exit ramp, the most common ramp sequence in the US. This could also be consecutive entrance ramps or consecutive exit ramps. This definition has varied. The Green Book, the most widely referenced geometric design policy in the US, has defined ramp spacing as between like points, which could vary quite substantially depending on the like points we choose. The Highway Capacity Manual has offered some different definitions as well. National Cooperative Highway Research Program (NCHRP) Report 687 offered this painted gore dimension, and it appears that the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials (AASHTO) will adopt it for future editions of its Green Book. Ramp spacing seems to have more relevant meaning from an operational and safety standpoint, as one interchange spacing can correspond to a range of ramp spacing values, depending on the interchange type. Here, we have guidance from the same document, NCHRP Report 687, on minimum ramp spacing. The guidance is organized by ramp sequence and interchange type, in this case, defined by whether the ramp is connecting the freeway directly to the cross street or to a collector-distributor road, as well as whether the ramps are part of system or service interchanges. These dimensions are shown here to be measured between what appears to be physical gores, but the Green Book suggests that any like points can be used. As I mentioned, this dimension could vary quite substantially depending on the like points selected. It appears that AASHTO will adopt the painted gore to painted gore dimension that NCHRP Report 687 offered for future editions of its Green Book. Now, I'll go through an example of using data to research a highway safety problem. A research team wanted to quantify the effects of interchange ramp spacing and auxiliary lane presence on both expected crash frequency and severity. Defining the segments was the first challenge. Normally, segments are defined to be uniform in terms of their traffic and features. The research team created 404 directional freeway segments for the analysis, approximately 3,600 miles from 2 states in the U.S. These 2 states do not provide a lot of geographic dispersion across the U.S., but they are 2 states with data related to ramp volumes, an important component of the models. The segments were defined from the cross street of the first interchange to the cross street of the next downstream interchange. Ramp spacing was defined from painted tip to painted tip. For this first step, the research team focused only on segments with diamond interchanges at each end. As such, the research team always had an entrance ramp followed by an exit ramp. Some segments had an auxiliary lane present, intended to improve safety and operations for shorter ramp spacing values. The safety effect of providing an auxiliary lane has not been quantified in the literature. The research team used 3 years of crash data to estimate the models. It is difficult to conduct a before-after analysis of ramp spacing because a variety of things change as a part of an interchange construction or reconstruction project. The research team used a cross-sectional study approach as indicated by their data collection procedure and used negative binomial regression to quantify the relationship between ramp spacing and safety. Here, the slide is showing the expected number of crashes, possibly all crashes, or by type and severity, as a function of a number of traffic and geometric variables and the natural logarithm of segment length, which is included with the parameter set to 1, as shown here. The covariates include directional traffic on the main line, entering and exiting traffic, ramp spacing, the presence of an auxiliary lane between entrance and exit ramps, the presence of ramp metering, presence of HOV lanes on the ramp and main line, the number of through lanes, and the vertical relationship between the cross street and freeway. For example, is the cross street above or below the freeway? You'll find the results for the model estimations for total crashes and fatal plus injury crashes, including parameter estimates and standard errors, in the research paper. The research team kept the model specifications general to try and minimize possible omitted variable bias in the estimates. Let me make one caveat here. If you think back a few slides, we are defining our segments from cross street to cross street. This means that some of the features may change along the segment. The variables that are currently on the right-hand side of the models are those that do not change. The research team used the data to explore some more challenging variables such as median type and width, which may change one or more times throughout the segment. The research team tried a variable called percent of segment with median barrier. It did not affect the ramp spacing parameter estimates, but once they added median characteristics to the model, they reasoned their level of confidence would increase another step. I want to focus on the research objective, which was access spacing. The research team specified this portion of the model, as shown here, with a main effect of spacing, then an interaction effect of auxiliary lane presence with spacing. I'll try to present these specific results in the form of crash modification factors. This is the ratio of expected crash frequencies under two different conditions. Oftentimes, condition A is referred to as the base condition, and condition B is some deviation from the base condition. The research team defined condition A as a freeway segment from cross street to cross street with an entrance and exit ramp and a very long spacing. Essentially, the CMF will approach 1 as the spacing approaches infinity. You can think of the base condition as a typical freeway segment, but the CMF never quite hits 1 because we always have the entrance and exit ramp location, where crashes tend to be a little higher than if there were no ramps. Here are the results for total crashes. Again, the parameter estimates for the rest of the variables are found in the paper, but with limited time, I wanted to focus on ramp spacing. We can now compare any two spacing values from a safety standpoint. For example, we have a CMF of approximately 1.1 at a spacing of 3,000 feet and no auxiliary lane, and a CMF of approximately 1.3 at a spacing of 1,500 feet and no auxiliary lane. So, we expect 1.3 divided by 1.1 equals 1.12, or 12% more crashes with a spacing of 1,500 feet compared to a spacing of 3,000 feet. We also show here a spacing CMF for segments with an auxiliary lane for weaving. This allows us to estimate the safety benefit of an auxiliary lane for any given spacing, which is something that is of interest to U.S. State Departments of Transportation, DOTs. For example, we see a 25% expected crash reduction if we provide an auxiliary lane at a spacing of 1,000 feet. This safety benefit diminishes as the spacing gets longer, as one would expect. For example, we see an expected 9% reduction at a spacing of 2,500 feet. I'll also quickly show the results for fatal plus injury crashes. The trends are similar. However, the sensitivity is a little less than for total crashes. In other words, the proportion of total crashes resulting in a fatality or injury is decreasing as spacing decreases. This is consistent with some previous work by John Milton, Venki Shankar, and Fred Mannering that seemed to show a reduction in crash severity as the number of ramps on a freeway section increased. This likely has something to do with the complex interactions of ramp spacing, operations and speed, and safety. After developing the models, the research team can then develop severity distribution functions to predict proportions of different crash severity levels as a function of traffic and roadway features. Severity distributions are likely to vary differently with traffic volumes and design decisions depending on the crash type of interest. The severity distribution function can be used to predict the probability, that is, proportion, of crashes with a specific injury severity outcome, conditioned on a crash having occurred at a location with a defined set of traffic and roadway characteristics. This graph shows the crash severity proportions as a function of ramp spacing with and without auxiliary lanes. The findings are somewhat intuitive, as speeds are expected to decrease as lane changing intensity increases at shorter ramp spacing values. Adding an auxiliary lane, which is expected to improve operations, increase speeds, and decrease expected crash frequency does increase overall crash severity, as measured by the proportions of severe crash outcomes. Again, this finding is not surprising given the high levels of sensitivity between operating speeds and crash severity. We can use the data and analysis to calculate the annual crash cost change for different ramp spacings and whether an auxiliary lane is present. The National Safety Council, NSC, calculates costs of motor vehicle injuries as the combined wage and productivity loss, medical expense, administrative expense, motor vehicle damage, and employers' uninsured costs. You can see from the table that reducing spacing with no auxiliary lane present increases annual crash cost by $32,000. However, reducing the spacing by the same amount and adding an auxiliary lane reduced annual crash cost by $71,000. Safety is defined as the number of accidents or accident consequences by kind and severity expected to occur on the entity during a specified period. There are many tools and resources available to analyze safety and perform a data-driven safety analysis. Some of these resources include the Highway Safety Manual, AASHTOware's Safety Analyst, the Crash Modification Factors Clearinghouse, and the Interactive Highway Safety Design Model. Two different types of road safety analysis methods exist: an experimental study and an observational study. An experimental study is where the researcher controls and manipulates the conditions, whereas an observational study uses either before-after data or cross-sectional data. Using before-after data to perform an analysis looks at data collected before and after something occurred, such as a roadway treatment or countermeasure was installed, to compare the safety effects. Cross-sectional studies only use data in the after period, for example, after a countermeasure was installed. These studies compare sites with and without a given treatment of interest. Here are two examples of before-after studies. The first picture shows a road with wider edge lines. The research team studied the safety effects of wider edge lines on rural two-lane highways by analyzing crash frequency data. The second picture displays the safety edge pavement technique, which seeks to mitigate crashes related to roadway departure events. The research team of that study analyzed the safety effects of the safety edge treatment using a before-after study. The previous example I went through that studied the safety effects of ramp spacing and auxiliary lanes used a cross-sectional analysis. This study compared the safety of ramps with different spacings and presence of auxiliary lanes. Now that you have an idea of how data can be used to analyze the safety impacts of different treatments and geometric conditions, I'm going to describe one data source that can be used to research different safety problems. This database is the Highway Safety Information System, or HSIS. HSIS is a roadway-based system that provides quality data on a large number of accident, roadway, and traffic variables. Currently, 7 states and 1 city offer data to HSIS and are available to researchers. They include Washington, California, Minnesota, Illinois, Ohio, North Carolina, Maine, and the city of Charlotte. As you can see on the map, historical or older data are available for 2 other states, Utah and Michigan. The state data includes state-maintained facilities, and Charlotte data covers all roads within the city limits. Using HSIS data has many advantages over using roadway and crash data from other sources. HSIS gives you the ability to analyze multiple states together with common variables. Crashes can be easily combined with traffic, infrastructure, and related assets. HSIS includes crashes for all severity levels. It has links and nodes with and without crashes, so analysts can compare safety of segments with and without crashes. When data are requested, researchers receive an integrated data set specific to their research questions. HSIS data can be integrated with other local, regional, or national data. One last big advantage of HSIS is that the data are provided free to researchers and alleviates the request burden on states. HSIS data have been used to analyze many infrastructure and safety countermeasures. Some practical applications relate to geometric design, roadway departure crashes, and visibility. I won't go through each practical application of HSIS data use, but you can see that HSIS data have been used in many data analyses for real-world treatments. Here are some other practical applications of HSIS data use pertaining to traffic control devices and lane management. Where does HSIS data fit in with other data sources? As I previously mentioned, HSIS includes data from states and 1 city. Other types of data are available at the national, regional, and municipal levels, as well as data from other third parties. HSIS data can be merged with other data sources. Some other data sources include United States Census Bureau, vehicle probe data, other county data, other city data, other state data, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Long-Term Pavement Performance Program, Motorcycle Crash Causation Study Database, Roadway Lighting Database, Second Strategic Highway Research Program, such as Naturalistic Driving Study or Roadway Information Database, and data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. After hearing about crash statistics, highway safety research, and HSIS data, now, what can students do to be a part of safety research? Students can get involved with highway safety research through participating in the HSIS Excellence in Highway Safety Data Award Student Research Paper Competition. The competition involves submitting a research paper that uses HSIS data to investigate a topic or problem that advances highway safety. Students should develop a research question, analyze the question using HSIS data, or HSIS data and other data sources, and write a research paper based on the analysis and results. Winning papers will receive recognition and award at a ceremony, and the first place winning paper will be published in an international journal. Winning papers will also receive cash prizes and support to attend an international transportation meeting. Participating in the competition will help you gain real-world experience with a safety data set that could potentially help make data-driven decisions. The competition is open to undergraduate and graduate students in degree-granting programs that support highway safety. These programs include, but are not limited to, engineering, planning, statistics, psychology, and economics. Papers for the competition can be based off of work such as class projects or theses that used HSIS data. This table shows an overview of the competition prizes. First, second, and third place winners receive a cash prize, recognition including a plaque at the ITE annual meeting, and registration for the ITE annual meeting. First and second place winners will receive lodging for the ITE annual meeting, and the first place winner will receive domestic airfare to the ITE annual meeting and publication of the research paper. More information on the competition and HSIS data is available on the HSIS website. This slide includes a list of references. We included an acknowledgement for the use of Google Earth imagery. If you have any questions, feel free to contact any of us using the contact information provided on the screen.